Hi, this is Aziz Kapadia from Sharp Programmer. In this video, we will learn about Azure Active Directory B2C features and how to use it for authentication. It will cover below topics: create an Azure B2C tenant, register an API with Azure AD and expose custom scopes for the API, register an MVC web app with Azure AD for B2C authentication, configure scope permissions for MVC web app, configure ASP.NET Web API and MVC web project settings for B2C authentication. Azure AD B2C is extremely useful feature. Azure Active Directory B2C provides business to consumer identity as a service. It provides ability to manage customer, consumer, and citizen access for business to consumer applications, provides high availability and can be scaled for millions of users. It comes with built-in fully customizable user experience for identity functionality. Customer can use their preferred social, enterprise or local account identities to get SSO access to our application. Customer can add custom authentication provider which supports standard protocol. First of all, we need an Azure B2C Active Directory or tenant. Let's create Azure B2C Active Directory in Azure portal. Log into Azure portal and open Azure AD Overview Blade. Click on Create a Tenant. Select Azure Active Directory B2C. Click on Next Configuration button. Enter organization name. Enter domain name. It should be unique and alphanumeric. For example, if business domain is abc.com, then enter abc.com or abc.org without a dot. Domain name would be a subdomain of onmicrosoft.com. Remember this domain name as it will be required on many places. We will refer it as tenant name. Select country region for data compliance purpose. Now click on Review plus Create button. Once validation passed message is displayed, then review the details and click on Create button. Wait for the deployment process to complete. Refresh the page so that new tenant is listed in the portal. Now switch the tenant. Click on Directory plus Subscription menu item on the top right hand side of the portal. Select All Directories tab. Select the new directory and let it reload. In the search bar, type Azure AD B2C. Select Azure AD B2C service from the list. First, let's set up Google as identity provider. Select Identity Providers Blade. It shows all of the available identity providers. We can see many providers are listed here. We can configure these providers and include them in the user flows to log in using the existing IDs created with these providers. Select Google as identity provider. Enter Google in name text box. We need client ID and secret from the Google to fill it up here. Click on this link to open the document. Follow the document to configure Google as identity provider. Navigate to https://console.developers.google.com and then log in with Google account credentials. Click on Google APIs drop-down list. It displays the list of APIs created with Google. Click on New Project link. Enter project name. Click on Create button. Google will create a new API project. Select Newly Created Project from the API list. Click on OAuth consent screen in the left hand side menu. Select External and click on Create button. Enter a name in application name text box. Enter b2clogin.com in authorized domains. Click on Save button. Now select Credentials from the left hand side menu. Click on plus Create Credentials. Select OAuth Client ID from the drop-down list. Select Web Application from the Application Type drop-down list. Enter application name. Copy origin URL from the Azure portal. Click on plus Add URI in Authorized JavaScript Origins section. Paste copied URL in this text box. Copy callback URL from the Azure portal. Click on plus Add URI in the Authorized Redirect URIs section. Paste the copied URL in URIs text box. Click on Create button. Once it is done, a window pops up with client ID and client secret. Copy it in Azure User Flow, client ID and client secret respectively. Save the ID provider details. We can configure other vendors as well. Follow the respective documents to configure. Now let's configure user flows. Select User Flows in Policies section. Click on New User Flow. Select Sign Up and Sign In User Flow type. Select Recommended Version and click on Create button. Azure displays a new blade to set up user flow details. Enter SUSI in the name text box. Azure adds a prefix B2C_1_ to the user flow name to create an ID. Select email sign up from local account and Google from social identity providers section. We must select at least one identity provider. For the MFA method and MFA enforcement, leave the default selection. This option is for multi-factor authentication. Select Collect Attribute and Return Claims. Collect Attribute list determines what information we collect from user during the registration process, and Claim list determines which claims would be included in the auth token. Select given name, surname for both type of lists. Then click on Show More link. It opens a new panel at the right hand side with more attributes and claims. We can use these fields for the user profile. We can also add custom attributes if it is not in this list on User Attributes blade of Azure AD B2C service. Select display name for both, email addresses for return claim and click on OK. Click on Create button. Now click again on New User Flow. Select Profile Editing Flow type and click on Create button. Enter edit_profile in name text box and select Google and email sign in. Select given name, surname from collect attribute and return claims lists. Click on Show More link. Select display name for both and identity provider and email addresses from return claim list. Click on OK button. Click on Create button to save the details. We can also create reset password user flow same way. Only difference is it doesn't show collect attribute list since it is only for reset the password. So user cannot change any other details. I have set up the user flow with ID B2C_1_reset_password. Now let's add an API and expose the scopes. Select App Registration Blade. Click on New Registration. Enter name products.api in the name text box. Select third option, account in any identity provider or organizational directory. Click on Register. Now open Expose an API blade. Click on Add a Scope link. Azure opens a new panel at the right hand side of the blade. Delete the GUID part and enter some string, for example Products API, and click on Save and Continue button at the bottom. Now enter products.view in the scope name text box. Enter View Products in Admin Consent Display Name text box. Enter Allows app to view products in the Admin Consent Description field. Click on Add Scope button. Close the blade. Now we will register a client app which will call this secured API with the custom products.view scope. Click on New Registration. Enter products.webclient in the name text box. Select this third option again. Enter https://jot.ms in the redirect URI text box. Click on Register button. Select Authentication blade. Select Access Tokens and ID Tokens options and save the details. Now we will add permissions for products.view API scope. Select API Permissions blade. Click on Add a Permission button. Select My APIs tab and then select Product API and select Products.view checkbox. Click on Add Permissions. Provide admin consent by clicking Grant Admin Consent and then click on Yes in the pop-up dialog box. Now close the blade and open User Flows blade. Click on Sign Up and Sign In Flow. Let's go through the options on this blade. Select Properties. Here we can change the MFA options. In the token lifetime section, we can change the expiration time of refresh token and access token. In the password complexity section, we can change password complexity. We can even select custom option and then set our own password complexity. Select User Attributes blade. Here we can change the information we are collecting for a user. On User Claims blade, we can change the claims returned with token. Select Page Layout. Here we can customize user interface for login, register, etc. Click on Template. It shows 3 templates available: Ocean Blue, Slate Gray and Classic. This is how Ocean Blue looks like. It has blue background image and login form, which also contains selected social login providers. And this is Slate Gray template with gray background and a little bit different input control styles than Ocean Blue template. Finally, this is how Classic template looks like. Apart from these 3 templates, we can provide our own template. Select Yes for user custom page content. Custom page URL text box is now enabled and we can change this URI. We can point it to a custom page template, but that will be in another video. Select No and select Local Account Sign Up page. We can see the fields which we have selected to collect user attributes. We can change the order of fields. Hover over the field. 3 dots appear on the left hand side. Drag and drop field by holding it to change the order. We can make a field mandatory by changing optional value to No. Let's do it for display name and save the changes. We can change the page URL to set a custom page here as well by selecting Yes option here. As we saw in Ocean Blue and Slate Gray templates, Azure provides some default background and logo images. We can change it using Company Branding blade. Close the blade to go back to main User Flows blade. Select Company Branding blade. Click on Configure. Upload a background image. Click on this folder icon to browse an image file on your computer. Upload a banner logo image same way. We can change background color of login page here. Provide a hex value like hash 6 times E. Upload square logo image from the computer using this icon. Click on Save button. Now click on User Flow again. Select Sign Up Sign In Flow. Click on Run User Flow link in top menu bar. It opens a new panel at the right hand side of the blade. Select products.webclient from the drop down list if it is not selected and click on Run User Flow button. We get a login window which is customized according to options set on the company branding blade. We also get sign in with social account option because we have set and selected Google as identity provider. Click on it and enter Google login credentials. And we get a token in jot.ms. Now let's configure Web API and MVC Web App to run a real-life application. Clone or download zip file from the GitHub. URL is in the description. Open solution in Visual Studio. First, we will configure Web API. Open appsettings.json file of sharpprog.tutorials.azure-b2c.api project. We have to enter client ID from Azure ID app registration overview blade. Replace tenant-name with Azure AD tenant name. Make sure policy IDs are matching with Azure AD user flow policy IDs. Save and close the appsettings.json file. Now let's configure MVC Web Client app. Open appsettings.json file of sharpprog.tutorials.azure-b2c.webclient project. We need a secret to call the Web API. Let's generate it using Azure AD in the portal. Open Web Client Registration Blade. Click on Certificates and Secrets blade. Click on New Secret. Leave the description blank and click on Add button. Save the secret. We have to set it in the Web Client App Secret setting. Enter products.webclient app registration client ID here. Replace tenant name with Azure AD tenant name wherever we have a placeholder for it. Copy redirect URL from the web client project settings. Add redirect URIs in Azure AD app registration authentication blade. Save the changes. This is how appsettings.json file of web client project would look like. In Visual Studio, right-click on the solution and select Startup options. Select Start for these two projects which will run on startup. Now click on Run button or press F5 on the keyboard. Once both projects are running, switch to the web client project and click on Sign In. We get the same screen here as we had seen in trial run. Click on Google for login. Enter Google credentials if prompted, and we are now logged into our application. Now click on Products link. It fetches products from Products API and displays products list. Let's sign out. Only product controller endpoints are protected. If we click on any other link, it will not prompt for login. But when we click on products link, then it shows the login form. Let's sign up new user. Click on Sign Up Now link. Enter an email and click on Send Verification Code. Meanwhile, enter password confirm password, name and surname. Check the email and enter verification code here. Click on Verify Code button. Click on Create button. We get an error for display name field that it is required. Do you remember we had made it mandatory in user flow for sign up screen? Enter full name in display name field and click on Create. This time we are able to create a new account. We can confirm that this account has been created in Azure AD B2C tenant. Select Users Blade in Azure AD B2C tenant. This is the user we have created using sign up form. Its source is Azure Active Directory. We can also see the user logged in with Google account and its source is Google. That's how we can configure the Azure B2C directory and register apps for authentication. Please leave your comments and suggestions below. Thanks for watching. Please subscribe the channel and hit the bell icon to get notified for the new videos.